Hey guys, Alasia here. So today I'm going to go over an article whose contents I think is indicative of how we're going to see promotional material come out on the Rings of Power as we get closer to September. Now, before we get going, I want to give a shout out to Salty Texas C for sending me this article. I will link his channel down below. If you want more Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power content, please check out his channel. So I'm going to very quickly read this article, but what I want you to keep an eye on is not so much the contents of what they're saying about the show. I want you to pay attention to the tenses and the syntax used throughout. I think that is a big clue on how we can understand what will happen in this show. So, in the first Lord of the Rings of Power trailer, we see a stunning shot of Galadriel scaling a cliff in the middle of a turbulent, chilly wasteland covered in snow and ice. In a breakdown of the trailer after the fact, it was made clear that the location is an area of Middle-earth known as the Fjordwaith or Northern Waste. In a reveal, the reveal naturally spawns the easy follow-up question, what is a Fjordwaith? The term Northern Waste only shows up once in The Lord of the Rings. Looper, FYI, book titles should be italicized, not in quotation marks. Story proper. In The Fellowship of the Ring should also be italicized. Frodo writes a song about Gandalf the Wizard after he falls with the Battle of the Balrog. In that song, the Hobbit adds the words, from Wilderland to Western Shore, from Northern Waste to Southern Hill. That's it. At least until you get to the appendices of The Return of the King. There, in those precise, dense, information-filled endnotes, we get quite a bit more information about this fascinating frozen area of Middle-earth. Since the Rings of Power is clearly going into the Fjordwaith, we thought we'd join them via a breakdown of what a Fjordwaith is, who lives there, yes, people predominantly live in the ice block of a country, and what other famous figures have traveled there before the Rings of Power team chose to send Morfydd Clark's young Galadriel into the treacherous region. The word Fjordwaith is also called the Northern Waste in most accounts of J.R.R. Tolkien's writings. The only exception is one instance in the introduction to the Book of Unfinished Tales, where Tolkien's son Christopher says that in one version of his father's writings, the title is condensed into a single word, Northernland. Please keep in mind, Amazon does not have access to the Unfinished Tales that should be italicized. In either case, the Fjordwaith is a frozen chunk of property away in the north of Middle-earth proper. If you follow a Middle-earth map to the top of the Misty Mountain Range, that spine running up the middle of the map, Fjordwaith is just beyond the top where the range splits. This area is just north of Mount Gundabad, the primary stronghold of the Witch King when he rules his realm of Angmar hundreds of years before The Lord of the Rings takes place. It's also just north of the eastern spur of mountains called the Erd Mithrin, or Great Mountains. These are connected to the Misty Mountains and located to the north of the Lonely Mountain. We know it's a lot of geography. Yeah. The Northern Waste itself is a bitterly cold area. This is because it's located near the ancient remnants of Atumno, the original fortress of the Dark Lord Morgoth, Sauron's original master. While that stronghold was destroyed long before the era of the Rings of Power, the bone-chilling might of its master continues to grip the region after its downfall, turning that area into a predominantly cold place to live. This tracks, this is correct, this is in lore. While the Fjordwaith refers to a region, it is also synonymous with the people who live there. In fact, Tolkien clarifies that the inhabitants give the land its name, Fjordwaith, which translates as people of the north. The Fjordwaith live in the area for a long time and are cryptically referred to as men of far-off days, leaving the reader to wonder how far off those days might have been. There's plenty of reason to believe these men could exist as far back as the Second Age and the Rings of Power story, but it isn't definitively stated. Okay. Regardless, by the time we meet them in Tolkien's writings, they're remnants of the original crew, a group called the Losoth, or Snowmen. In the appendix to The Return of the King, which should be italicized, the Losoth are called a strange, unfriendly people, remnant of the Fjordwaith, men of far-off days, accustomed to the bitter cold of the realms of Morgoth. Looper, also, you should end your quotations with quotation marks. That is just good grammar. The Losoth lead bitterly cold lives. No, seriously. They live in literal snow houses and don't need wheeled transportation since all of their carts are sled-bound. Are they now? They're even legendary ice skaters, who strap bones to their feet and glide over the ice. Oh my gosh. Losoth culture feels tribal and primitive. Says who? They lean heavily on their gut instincts and spirituality. I'm sorry, where's that written down? They utter statements, more on that later, and can smell danger in the wind, much like the Dunedain who lived near Minas Tirith. You know what I find funny? Up here, we were getting citations. They were showing their work. They're showing where this is written down in Tolkien's work. Now, all of a sudden, we know about their spirituality, and yet we have no citation to back this up. That's odd. And an interesting aside, in some of his earlier writings, Tolkien used the word fjordwaith to refer to Vikings. That's cool. All right, so this is getting into dragons, which I'm not really going to go over very much. They're just saying how they could show up, that they were present in the first age, and that the cold drakes were in the north, much like Smaug, which is mentioned in The Hobbit. Whether or not the same monsters would have been present thousands of years earlier in the Second Age during the Rings of Power isn't stated. However, the dragons are present in the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age, and it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that they would continue to be present and a threat to the northern regions of Middle-earth between that time and later in the Third Age when we hear about them again. This would mean they could easily factor into the Rings of Power storyline. Okay, so I think it's interesting. We get a could here, which means they don't know. They're just, they're guessing, they're assuming. And up here, all of a sudden, we've got gospel-stated facts about their spirituality. I just think that's interesting. Okay, last bit, which is about Aragorn's line. And the last bit about the Fjordwaith we'll mention here is that one of Aragorn's ancestors had a pretty epic and tragic adventure here. Of course, anytime a character's cognomen is last king isn't a good sign. In this case, this guy starts off as king of the Splinter Kingdom, a remnant of Gondor's sister city, or sister kingdom in northern Middle-earth. At one point, he gets tangled up on the losing side of a fight with the Witch King of Angmar, who invades his kingdom and crushes it. The king of the land flees to the north with a handful of his vassals right into the northern waste. There, it says he first hides in some old tunnels of an abandoned dwarf mine, but hunger drives him to seek the help of the nearby locals. Who are they? Why? They're the Fjordwaith, of course. There's spectacle about this ragged king and his followers, but they build them snow huts and give them some food. Again, where are their sources for this? I would really love to know that. After spending some time twiddling their thumbs, are you joking me? An elven ship arrives and carries the king and his people away. Before that happens, though, the chief of the Fjordwaith prophesies that he shouldn't get on the ship. The king ignores the advice, sails away, and is drowned in an icy storm soon afterwards. Interestingly, he leaves his ring behind in gratitude for help to the snowmen. It just sounds so weird. The ring ends up being the Ring of Badahir, a very important heirloom that is ransomed by his people later on and eventually finds its way to Aragorn. Okay, cool. This is what I want us to focus on. This one measly little sentence, and also this as well. Okay, this is subtle, and if you were reading this, say, in a grocery line, waiting to check out, this would probably slip past you. However, I think this is important to acknowledge. I have seen more and more that with any information we get about this show, there are statements about what's going to happen, not assumptions. Not guesses, but things stated as pure fact. I think that this is Amazon slipping things in, and it's meant to prepare us for what is to come. Now, you may be thinking it's 2 sentences, chill, but I think there are a couple of reasons why it is as subtle as it is here. One, if they keep it subtle, it will be that slow drip saturation that will only build up over time, but you don't notice it in the moment. 2, they can't come out and state explicitly what their intentions are because 1.6 million downvotes on their one and only trailer isn't a good sign. And this isn't the only place this is happening, but I'll get to that in a moment. They're telling us in this article that the people of the Fjordwaith are going to play an essential role, which, okay, fine. Tolkien mentioned them, great. But Amazon doesn't have access to the unfinished tales, and then there are 2 sentences, according to Looper, where these people are mentioned. So they're building an entire subplot based off of 2 sentences. That gives me no comfort. Now, like I said, this isn't the first time this has happened. If you go to IMDb, to this video called Everything We Know About the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, they say that Meteor Man is none other than Sauron himself. First of all, no, just no. If you would like to know what happened to Sauron after the War of Wrath or after the fall of Numenor, watch my Literary Soul Sister stream I do with The Untamable Life every Saturday. I refuse to explain how wrong that is according to lore. But back to the statement. Even though they use the word rumored in this video, and I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get ahead on my channel, I have to ask, rumored by who? I have not seen a single solitary person say that Meteor Man could be Sauron since the trailer aired. The prevailing theory up until this moment was that this guy is Gandalf. So who's doing the rumoring? Myself and Untamable covered this the morning it dropped on IMDb, and I haven't seen anyone talk about it. Not even Fellowship of the Fans, who are now in business with Amazon. So I have no idea who started this rumor. But seeing as IMDb is owned by, or at least in partnership with, Amazon, I think this is Amazon's very sly way of sneaking in a fact about this show. I think it's very likely that this is Sauron, which is just, again, no. So no. The reason I'm breaking this down, along with this article, is I want you to start paying attention to the phrasings of the articles that come out leading up to the release of the Rings of Power. If there are statements in them, not speculations, don't dismiss that as the writer being lazy or daydreaming about what they want to happen. I think it's not too far-fetched to say that it could be an indication that that news outlet received some talking points and we're getting facts about what's to come. Again, not speculation. So there's my breakdown of this news. Again, shout out to Salty Texas and the Untamable Life for bringing all of this to my attention. If you like what you heard, please consider liking the video, leaving a comment, and hitting that subscribe button. All of that is much appreciated. So until next time, bye.